Oh, ladies and gentlemen, do we got some absolutely breaking news? I'm gonna give you guys my opinion on this card. It ain't gonna be that nice. For one fighter, it will. I like this move for one fighter. But we got some absolutely breaking news. A couple fighters added and a fight announcement to the May 16th Norfolk, Virginia, Keyshawn Davis versus Nahir Albright rematch card. I'm going to end it with Keyshawn Davis and Nahir Albright. We found out today, Calvin and Keon Davis, the younger and the older brother of Keyshawn Davis, will also be on that card. Not a surprise. Not a surprise at all. But this last week, Brian Norman Jr. has been hot in the boxing world, doing his run of interviews, confirming, he was doing some work with Earl the True Spence Jr., confirming mentally and physically Earl the True Spence Jr. is looking fantastic. Was going against what his father, Brian Norman Sr., was saying when it comes to the micro dose conspiracies going towards Devin the Dream Haney's way. And talked about Rolly Romero. Says that Rolly fight is one of the main fights that he would like to have in the 147-pound division. We got a fight announcement when it comes to Brian Norman Jr. And I like it. I like it. And I'm going to tell you why. Brian Norman Jr., who's the former WBO welterweight champion of the world, who just lost his title November 22nd on the Anthony Yard card versus David Benavidez, Abdullah Mason, Sam Noakes, Fernando Martinez versus Jesse Bam Rodriguez. Brian Norman Jr., trained by his father, Brian Norman Sr., go into that fight airheaded. Brian Norman Sr. thinking they got it in the bag already before they even stepped in that ring. Brian Norman Jr. ends up losing his WBO welterweight title, the first time he's ever lost in his career. Who, after the fight, we hear the breaking news, he has officially split from his father, will no longer be training with Brian Norman Sr. Gladly, after seeing both of their takes on several different things, you can tell Brian Norman Jr. is the complete opposite of what his father is. Now he's training in Houston with Ronnie Shields. And I think this Josh Wagner fight, yes, Brian Norman Jr. versus Josh Wagner, who isn't even ranked by any of the sanctioning bodies as we speak, was, but not anymore. Believe he has 19 wins, 2 losses, 1-2 in his last 3 fights, got beat down by David Papo, body shot, fouled on one knee, decided not to get up. If you look at the resume, if you look at BoxRec and you go through Josh Wagner's fighters and you see the fighters that he's fought and the fighters that those fighters fought, Josh Wagner has exposed himself. And I'm not saying because of that David Papo loss, but the dude is coming off, what is it? A unanimous decision loss to Harlem Eubank, where he was talking about exposing Harlem Eubank Jr. in that fight. He was talking about Harlem being a fighter who is just carrying the Eubank last name. That's all it is. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to absolutely expose him. And I always say this, ladies and gentlemen. Be careful what you say about your opponents. Because you say that this guy's going to get exposed. You say he's actually not a true boxer. But what happens when you lose to that opponent? What happens? You are the one who gets exposed. I don't ever talk about boxers getting exposed a lot. I don't like to talk about it. But in this case with Josh Wagner, it only makes sense. You can't talk about exposing somebody because of their last name, because they're not that great of a boxer. and end up getting beat by them. Hear it from Josh Wagner's mouth himself.
They say that he hasn't been able to reach that yet. He's told me that he's going to show you what world level is. How do you respond to that?
You know, I think every fighter comes in with a certain confidence, and that's just how he portrays himself. I think it's all a facade. I think it's all a play. I think he's a Eubank, and he thinks he's Mr. Hype. He's the man. You know, it's his hometown. All the fans are here for him. But this is boxing, so when we get in the ring, it's just me and him, and the Eubank name doesn't mean shit to me. I truly feel like Harlem lives off the Eubank name. I don't feel like he's as hype as everyone thinks he is, and I'm going to expose him.
Running his mouth. And the dude had absolutely no answer for Harlem Eubank. Now, gonna be going up against Brian Norman Jr. And I'm gonna tell you why I like this fight for Brian Norman Jr. There might be some people out there saying, oh, come on, Brian, you're coming off fighting DEVIN HANEY. You're taking a step back here. This dude isn't even in the rankings at 147 pounds anymore. But we gotta keep in mind that Brian Norman Jr. is coming off a loss and has completely switched his training camp for the first time in his career, which had a larger impact in his career than anything ever had. Brian Norman Jr. raised his whole life trained by Brian Norman Sr. This is the first fight that we will not be seeing them together. Ronnie Shields will be training Brian Norman Jr. And we all know the first fight that you join a new trainer, everything isn't just going to link up just like that. It takes time. It takes time. So instead of throwing Brian Norman Jr. in the ring with another top-notch dude, Rolly Romero, somebody like that, and takes another L, then imagine what that does to his career. It's the first time that you're fighting without your father. Josh Wagner is the perfect opponent for Brian Norman Jr. to come in here and basically do whatever he wants with Josh Wagner. He can do whatever he wants. Josh, in my opinion, doesn't know what he does. He doesn't know what he does. Tries to fight from the outside. Can't do it. Tries to fight on the inside. Sloppy. His resume says it all, ladies and gentlemen. I want you guys to go do a deep search on the fighters that Josh Wagner has beaten to get to the point where he is. Josh Wagner's one of those type of dudes that just doesn't deserve to be in the top 10, top 15 of any sanctioning body ranking. And that's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for Brian Norman Jr. to get his feet under him again. A fight under Ronnie Shields. Come back mentally and physically. Get a dub on the co-main event. May 16th in Norfolk, Virginia. The co-main event to a fight that I don't like. I like what Brian Norman Jr. is doing here. Do I like what Keyshawn Davis is doing here when they hear Albright? No, I don't. Let's be real. I'm a Keyshawn Davis fan. But we've got to be real. The amount of names that the dude was calling out. From 135 to 147. From Abdullah Mason to DEVIN HANEY. And then we hear the breaking news that the dude is going to be fighting Nahir Albright in a rematch. Nahir Albright, who's coming off a draw with Frank Martin. I would have enjoyed it if it was against Frank Martin rather than Nahir Albright, a fight that we've already seen. Why do we need to see this again for the career of Keyshawn Davis? Why? I don't care that all these fighters that Keyshawn Davis were booked. That nobody wants to get into the ring with Keyshawn Davis. I don't care. At the end of the day, you're going in there once again against Nahir Albright, and you want the boxing world to care about this fight. Well, let's be real. how is this May 16th card turning out now? As a whole, how is this card turning out now? I just broke down why I like the Brian Norman Jr. fight. But from a fan standpoint, not from a caring about the fighter to get some work in with the new trainer, but from a fan standpoint who wants to see the best fight the best. Is Josh Wagner as good as Brian Norman Jr.? No. Stop playing with yourself. Keyshawn Davis and Calvin Davis, the brothers of Keyshawn Davis on this card, more than likely going to be on the main event. Is that great to see? No. I mean, come on. And then to headline, Keyshawn Davis and Nahir Albright? This might just be one of the more bad end cards. At the end of the day, we're all going to tune in still. It's going to be exciting to see Brian Norman Jr. come back and see how he looks following the departure of his father in his training camp, Brian Norman Sr. But as an overall whole, compared to all the cards that are going down around the world in the sport of boxing, this is one of your more mediocre ones. But it's breaking news, man. Brian Norman Jr. and Nahir Albright, May 16th. We already knew about this. The rematch, the co-main event. Brian Norman Jr., the WBO welterweight former champion of the world, going up against Josh Wagner in his return fight to the world of boxing after losing his world title, man. Let me know what you guys think. This is absolutely breaking news. I'm out.